37. And this is from the SAT number 17. This is the April 2019 QAS test. And let's jump in and solve the question. So 37 says, as used in line 30, sober most nearly means. So the way to solve this is let's go to line 30. Let's check out what is being said about sober and try to pretty much figure out what's the context of this and maybe what's a word that we could use to replace it. So this basically says that here. So the popular leader is obliged to become active in propagating doctrines and establishing powers that will afterwards defeat any sober purpose at which he ultimately might have aimed. So this comes in the context, this comes in the part of the paragraph where Burke is talking about a leader who, gives some sensible, gives some qualified claims or proposals or some ideas, and basically how he gets passed over. Moderation gets stigmatized until finally, basically you have the popular leader, the leader who wants to remain popular. He has to propagate doctrines and establish powers that will afterwards defeat any sober purpose at which he ultimately might have aimed. This is basically saying that the pressures of popularity in the way that the National Assembly is set up are going to force leaders, if they want to remain popular, to come up with proposals and schemes that are basically going to undermine any sober purposes that they have. So he's sort of contrasting the sensational, popular, more flashy and dynamic and charismatic proposals and style of government with something that's a little bit more sober and a little bit more grounded. So I think defeat any sober purpose would probably mean defeat any sensible purpose, would sort of defeat any moderate purpose at which he ultimately might have aimed. So something that's a little more grounded as opposed to being flashy, as opposed to being more interesting and charismatic. So we have grave. Grave does sort of signal something a little more serious. The problem is that it's a little too strong, right? So grave would be ultra serious, and that's not really what's being emphasized here. It's more so sober as opposed to being intoxicated by some of these different ideas. So I don't think grave is a good answer choice. Then we have B, which says rehabilitated, which doesn't really make sense. That means repaired. So we'll defeat any rehabilitated purpose or any repaired or refreshed purpose. Doesn't make sense. Unpretentious, basically Burke is not really emphasizing the lack of pretense of this, right? Basically saying that you can only be pretentious to have a proposal or a scheme that's going to be effective and popular. Then we have D, reasonable, which is the most neutral of the answer choices, most general, and it does match what we mean by sober, which is contrasting with some of the less reasonable, more popular, more dynamic and charismatic proposals. So I think D is the correct answer for question number 37.